Two things. The longer I go without washing my hair, the more I look like a cross between Wurzel Gummidge and Sideshow Bob. Two, I could never get my grass to grow, and for years, literal years, like since I moved in, like 5 years ago, I think it was 5 years ago, 2019, I've been like, why can't I get the grass to grow? Turns out, the builders that I had in just put grass over the paving stones that used to be there. They just rolled turf over concrete. So for ages, I spent money, lots of money on grass seed, trying to get that stuff to grow. There's just concrete underneath there. Thanks for that, guys. Really appreciate that. I was had. Oh, Carrie's talking about Stage Door again. Look, I haven't been in a job since December 31st, so nothing has prompted this video other than just the general conversation of Stage Door. And I've seen a lot about audience behaviour and like stage door etiquette recently. And I always said that I wanted me making videos and my YouTube comeback of sorts to be about just talking about things that I enjoy talking about, things that I have experience in, because those things are minimal, so there's only a very small amount of stuff that I actually do get to talk about. But Stage Door is definitely one of those things, and I've always said, because I think I've always been and will always be fascinated by parasocial relationships, but also just the coming together of audience and actor, or even like, you know, the mega famous, like, you know, your Beyoncé's and your Taylor Swift, and how they interact with their audiences and how their audiences interact with their... I just find the whole thing fascinating and nuanced and sometimes like bizarre, but also wonderful. There's just so much to it, and I honestly could talk about it for forever, but I only want this video to be sort of like, you know, below 10 minutes, so let's get cracking. Now, I don't really want to do a video on like stage door etiquette, because I don't think it's fair to police how people behave, how people interact with each other. I think everyone has an idea of what they want out of the interactions they have at stage door, and sometimes people just want to come together and, you know, the audiences want to thank the actor for a great night, and likewise the actors want to thank the audience for coming and being part of that great night. I think that thank you and that gratitude goes both ways. I think where it gets a little bit hairy is because there's an imbalance, because the audience may have prior knowledge of the people on stage because they are, you know, either they're online and they're living their lives in a public eye, or even if they're not, their jobs just allow them to be viewed by more people than your average person. So sometimes there's an imbalance of like knowledge. The person coming to watch the show may know a hell of a lot more about the actor on stage than the actor knows about the audience member, and sometimes that's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that the people on stage don't know you at all, let alone as well as you know them. Did that sentence make any sense? I think I've confused myself with that one. Just FYI, this tea is so good. I'm having such a nice time. So instead of making a stage door etiquette video and telling people how they should behave at stage door, I come up with a list of points that are just things to keep in the back of your mind. It's just a list of things that are good to remember when you're at stage door, just so that the overall experience for everyone is a pleasant one, because that's exactly what it should be. Stage door should be an enjoyable experience for everyone who is there, regardless of why they're there. It should just be fun. Number one is just remembering to keep in mind that stage door isn't meant for meet and greets. It was never put there intended for the purpose that we now use it for. It was literally just the entrance and the exit for people who work in a theatre. It's literally just the stage door, the door to the stage, even though it's not technically the exact door to the stage, but it's the door that leads to the stage. So the fact that we now get to use it to meet each other is a real bonus and a real privilege, and it's, you know, it's something that we've developed over time because of how much we all love musical theatre and we all have a massive appreciation for it. So I think thinking of it as this huge bonus, and isn't it, you know, a massive privilege that we actually get to do this, because this isn't really what this is intended for, it kind of helps make the whole experience a lot more magical, I guess. Number 2, in the same vein, stage door isn't a guarantee. The price of your ticket doesn't include a meet and greet because, like I said, stage door isn't meant for meet and greets. If you do go to stage door and you do get to meet the person that you were hoping to meet, oh my god, how amazing. But if you don't, I understand that it can be a little bit disappointing, but I think it's just good to have in your mind before you go to stage door that it may not happen. You may not get the interaction that you wanted to get for whatever reason, whether the actor doesn't turn up at stage door, or you missed them, or, you know, maybe they just take too long coming out of stage door and you've got to get a train. I think it's all about managing expectations and going, do you know what, I'm gonna go and see what happens, and if I get something, amazing, how wonderful. If I don't, there's always next time. Number 3, if an actor doesn't stop at stage door, it's not because they don't want to meet you. It's not because they think that they're better than anyone. Sometimes it's because their mum's in and they just want to spend a bit more time with their mum. Or sometimes there have, honestly, hand on heart, been times where I've had an audition between shows and I've had to dart across London to get to the audition and back again before the next show starts. Sometimes the actor's feeling under the weather. Sometimes they're absolutely exhausted because they've had a lot on that week. Or sometimes, you know, just the role that they're playing is incredibly taxing, and the thought of standing at stage door for an hour and a half after a show, whether that's a matinee or an evening show, it's just not something that they're able to do for their own health and their own voices. And being healthy and vocally ready for the next performance, for the next paying audience, is more important than doing something extracurricular, for want of a better term. As soon as the curtain comes down on the last show, that is that actor's contractual obligation fulfilled. Doing stage door is just a fun bonus for everyone involved. So if they don't feel they are able to do it, there should be no guilt or repercussions for not doing it. So if an actor doesn't turn up at stage door, please never take it personally. It's never to do with not wanting to meet people, but it's to do with prior engagements, not feeling up to meeting with a huge crowd of people. Because remember, you are one person, but you are one person maybe stood with like 30 to 50 to sometimes 100 people stood at stage door after a performance. And once you've had your interaction, you go home and you get the train home and you get to like rest and chill out and talk about how great the show was and how fun a time you had. But the actor might still be stood there for another hour meeting with other people at stage door. Just on a separate note within this point, I guess, there is sometimes this mentality where I've heard it said, in Les Mis. To be fair, that's the only time I've heard it said out loud, but I've seen it on social media where people say, if it wasn't for me buying a ticket, you wouldn't get paid tonight, or, you know, like, we pay your wages by buying our tickets. And that isn't technically true. Obviously, if everyone stopped coming to the theatre, then there would be no need to hire the actors to do the show. So in that sense, yes, but how much the show makes on a nightly basis or on a weekly basis, on a monthly, like, it literally doesn't matter how much money the show makes. The actor will always be paid the same as what their contract states when they signed it at the beginning of their contract. Their payment doesn't fluctuate depending on how many tickets were sold that night. So not that anyone watching this video would think this, because I know that you're all lovely, respectful people. However, if you are someone that thinks that actors should be spending their time with you, their free time with you after a show because you pay their wages by buying tickets to the show, you are wrong, my friend. Number 4, everyone has a reason that they would love to be first in line to meet the person that they want to meet. Everyone has a train that they need to get home somewhere. Everyone has a family member waiting for them patiently who doesn't understand musical theatre and doesn't get why you'd want to wait at stage door, who's probably tapping their foot and looking at their watch going, come on, hurry up. No one has more reason than the other person to push in or, you know, be seen first by whoever comes out of stage door. So if you want to wait, but you run the risk of missing your train, that's entirely your call. But equally, if you don't want to wait because, you know, getting your train home, there's one train home and you have to get it, and that's more important, but it means that you'll be really disappointed because you don't get to meet whoever you want to meet. Again, that's also your call, and it's no one's fault it's no one's problem. The decisions you make regarding waiting or not waiting, whether that's, you know, because you've got to wait ages or maybe it's raining, no one's making you wait. So just remember that there will be more people than just you waiting at stage door who probably have just as much reason as you do to be first in line to meet whoever they want to meet. Number 5, be prepared for actors to maybe be a little bit under-energized at stage door. Manage your expectations in that sense as well, because they might not be exactly like their characters on stage if they are like high energy characters, and they might not be the same sort of like energized people that they are online if you follow them on social media, because at stage door they've just done a performance which might have been a very taxing performance, whether that's vocally, energy wise, physically, and they're probably exhausted. And so if they're under energized, or maybe they're a little bit quiet or a little bit withdrawn, it's not because they're being inauthentic on social media or they're being inauthentic on stage, even though obviously acting is a different kettle of fish because they're obviously acting as somebody else, but it's just probably because they're conserving energy for the next performance because they might have another show that evening, or it's probably just because they're very, very tired, or they're talking quietly because, you know, they've got another big sing tomorrow or that night. And also, coming out stage door can be a little bit daunting if you're a bit more of an introverted person, like I am. If there's a massive crowd at stage door, sometimes it is a little bit, or a lot, anxiety inducing, knowing that all these people are there for you potentially, and that they're all expecting something of you. Sometimes that can make you just sort of withdraw and retreat into yourself a little bit. And sometimes I find it very, very hard to match someone's energy when I'm feeling that almost like imposter syndrome, because even though you've just done a show and you might be really proud of the show that you did, sometimes you come out of stage door and people clap and cheer and you're like, oh God, like I just did my job. Like I haven't saved anyone's life. I haven't, you know, been a hero. I've literally just put on a costume and a wig and I've sung some songs, and I'm so pleased that everyone's enjoyed it. But sometimes I don't feel worthy of the adoration that sometimes I get at stage door, and that makes me feel a little bit embarrassed, if I'm totally honest. It makes me feel a little bit fraudulent. So sometimes if I'm a little bit like meek or timid at stage door, it's probably because I'm feeling that. And I've had many a conversation with many an actor friend who feel exactly the same way, and sometimes they just don't know how to match the energy of the very excited people who come to stage door. And it's not because they're being inauthentic when they're, you know, being their sort of like big personas online and on stage. It's just because stage door is a very bizarre situation to be put in. Obviously, if an actor is rude to you at stage door, or they're not nice to you at stage door, that's a completely different conversation. Is it raining? It's absolutely raining. Well, it's a good job that was my last point anyway. So if there's anything that I've forgotten below, let me know. And I just don't think it's necessarily about etiquette or policing how people behave. I think the whole experience is basically about managing expectations and knowing that you might meet some people, and if you do, that's such a magical bonus to going to see an amazing show anyway. And if you don't get to meet people, then unfortunately that's sometimes just the way it happens, but there's always next time. And that's not to say that you can't be disappointed, it's just to say that your disappointment isn't necessarily anybody's fault. So I finished this video just at the right time because my daughter's just started to wriggle, I've run out of tea, and it's starting to rain, so I will see you next time.